robots took my podcast, man.
New York City, 50 years from today. Nothing runs, nothing works.
They gave me a quarter of a kilo.
But people are the same. And people will do anything to get what they need. What they need most is Soylent Green. Simonson, board of directors of the Soylent Corporation, murdered because he discovered the secret of Soylent Green. Detective Thorne, he's got to find out what Simonson knew. Saul Roth, Thorne's researcher.
Courtesy of your next assignment, William R. Simonson, Chelsea Towers West.
Cheryl, the furniture.
Is that Simonson?
Yes.
Hatcher, police captain.
Simonson.
Supposed to look like he was killed when he caught some punk burglarizing his apartment.
Well, what do you say?
It was an assassination.
Tab Fielding, bodyguard.
Why would you leave that door open? Why did you set up Simonson?
Charlton Heston, Edward G. Robinson, Lee Taylor Young, Chuck Connors. Fight for survival and solve the most bizarre riddle ever to face mankind.
This is the police. I'm asking you to disperse. The supply of Soylent Green has been exhausted.
Why does Soylent Green mean life?
You must disperse. The scoops are on their way.
Why does Soylent Green mean death?
Welcome to our podcast. I am Jordan.
And I am Anthony.
Anthony, movie are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about a film called Soylent Green from 1973.
Released by MGM.
Jordan, why are we talking about this fine film today?
One interesting thing about this movie is it is set in the year 2022.
Ooh, the future!
In the future.
Which is not our future.
This is now being recorded in May of 2022, folks. That's the weird thing. This is why it's weird, man. It's weird, man, and it weirds me out.
Yeah, I know. This movie predicted a future, which we're not there yet. It could be. Give it time. There's a lot going on in the world.
One thing I'm thankful for, yes, is that it's not quite like this movie, actually.
We're not Soylent Green just yet, people.
This would be this movie stars Charlton Heston, and this would be the sixth collaboration between him and producer Walter Seltzer, who produced this movie with him. And previous movies they had worked on together include The Omega Man, another dystopian science fiction movie, very bleak as well. And Heston and Seltzer had an odd relationship. They disagreed a lot on political things, violently, apparently.
Really?
And and apparently, but the one thing they agreed on was the problem, the forthcoming problem people were starting to notice about overpopulation, that it might become a major problem eventually in the world.
Yeah, exactly. So this actually comes at a time in the 70s. There was a big environmental movement. I think the EPA was started in 1970, right? So it was in the public consciousness. Yeah, you had other films like Silent Running around the same time. And
Earth Day came about in 1970.
Yeah, Earth Day. And then you also had just a whole slew in the 70s of like monster movies where some sort of animal, whether it be an ant or a bug or something, rabbits, whatever it is, every movie begins with just a barrel of toxic waste pouring into a river. And it's in the zeitgeist, it's in the consciousness, everybody, and Hellstrom Chronicle, whatever weird, it's just like an apocalyptic thing was going on, and including the impending fear of an environmental catastrophe.
It was based on a book by Harry Harrison that came out in 1968 called Make Room, Make Room. And the essential message of the book was about how man just uses up how man and woman use up their resources so quickly as humans do, and how it might become an eventual problem in the future. And it was set The book apparently was set in 1999.
Ooh.
That was where they thought things would really get bad, apparently, right? At the coming of the millennium. And Heston apparently read this book and took it to Walter Seltzer, who was kind of his guy. He was kind of his producer guy to go to when he wanted to get a project of his own going, including that's how the Omega Man got made, as far as I know, as well. And then a lot of times Heston would give people jobs he knew working on some of his own movies, of course.
Yes, he was making a lot of science fiction movies, like you mentioned, at this later part of his career, a big resurgence for him. And he was deep and heavy into his ascot phase. Like, every movie, he's wearing a handkerchief.
I was wondering if you were going to bring up the ascot.
Handkerchief or ascot and every, like, his neck could not be naked. Maybe it was a phobia. I don't know.
You skipped ahead on the notes here on me, yeah. But yeah, from the get-go, from the opening scene when we see him and Edward G. Robinson, after this beautiful, interesting montage of photos, which shows industrial age stuff, like, and factories and pollution and people and more people and more people, and with a beautiful underscore with a beautiful music score by Fred Meyer. I think I said his name right.
Yeah, the score on that is wonderful. It really, you just jump right into this movie with these montages, and it's weird. It begins in, like, kind of Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, like old-timey 1920s, I don't know, and then on to the modern era, and it tells the whole story of the collapse of the industrial world due to pollution and overpopulation. I think it's a fantastic sequence.
It's a real kind of mini movie title sequence before that was really a big thing, I think. Well, there was always title sequences. What am I talking about? But it really is. It's a whole montage unto itself. It's almost completely expressive of what apparently the book was about. Although I've never read the book, honestly. I looked up Wikipedia stuff on the book and everything.
It's amazingly depressing.
Oh,
and it puts you right into the story, which is a sort of depressing story. Like, if you're having a great day, like, well, watch a little movie.
Yeah.
Soylent Green, which is a really good movie, is probably not going to be a pick-me-up film.
It must not really be a coincidence that I discovered these pre-Star Wars science fiction movies in my adolescence and teens when I was depressed going through puberty.
This movie speaks to me, man. The whole world sucks.
Totally. But I'm just, it made me nostalgic watching it again, all the way back to when I was first discovering it even, but
And the director is Richard Fleischer, right? Son of...
He directed, he's son of Max Fleischer,
Max
the
Fleischer.
animator of one of my favorite Superman cartoons ever, the original.
Yeah, creator of, everything, Popeye.
Yeah.
And just live action stuff. Yeah, look into Max Fleischer and
his son
Fleischer
Richard
Studios.
Also directed 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea for Mr. Walt Disney.
And Fantastic Voyage, Conan sequels.
That's right, Conan the Destroyer, right?
Yeah, and Red
that's
Sonja.
Right.
So,
1984.
he's got some movies under his belt before and after this. So yeah.
So I can try to describe some of the plot as best I can. If you want, I can start off a little.
Well,
bit.
I want to begin with it's the year 2022. It's
once
the
again,
place, New York City. The population is 40 million.
40 million. Is that? Did you do the math on this one?
I did the math, and I also read the title at the beginning of the movie.
Are we at Is New York really at 40 million now, or no?
Oh, today, no. I don't know what New York is at. I don't know, 16 million, 20 million. It's nowhere near that, but I don't know. L.A. feels more like this movie. People living in the street.
And the movie is filmed, it's set in New York, and it's filmed in parts of Los Angeles, but a big chunk of it is filmed on Old New York Street of MGM. What was the old MGM lot before they sold this chunk off, and it later became the Sony lot. But the beautiful thing about this New York Street, Anthony, back then was it looked like, you can kind of tell, it looked like it was about a 4-story facade, basically, 3-story facade at times, which was helpful for this kind of movie being as big, with crowd sequences and all.
They are very economic about using their sets here.
Totally.
There are very few sets in this movie. It's really used to good effect, but it's really interesting to see.
Yeah.
They're moving the camera around the same thing, but yeah, they have that street scene, and whenever they're outside, there's this green tint because remember, this is a dystopian post-environmental apocalypse world where
I would bet money that's like that's a green pantyhose they stuck over the lens or something, or green stocking they stuck over the lens probably.
Jordan, don't get too technical here. Talk down to our level. Come on.
Sorry.
No, to me it looked like it was a green tint and superimposed smoke over those outdoor scenes. It's not real smoke, obviously, but yeah. And so we meet our main character, Tom.
Or John Thorne is his name.
Thorne,
actually.
Okay.
Thorne, yeah.
And so he is...
And he's roommates with Edward G. Robinson, who plays Saul.
And Edward G. Robinson needs no introduction, just a very famous star of the golden era of Hollywood. Just a lot of different roles, gangster roles, etc.
Yeah. And this is also the first time we get to see, again, Heston with the ascot on, wiping the sweat off his face with it.
And boy, he wears it well. This is a sweaty movie.
Around his neck like he's a cowboy or something. And I got to admire his chops with wearing that. It takes a lot of chops to wear that ascot like that.
He uses it. He's an ascot actor, and it looks great on him. He uses it well. And this is a very sweaty movie, so you kind of need an ascot.
Maybe that's why,
Because of the greenhouse effect, it's always like 90 something, 100 degrees outside, and there's no air conditioning because there's been a total collapse in the world, and there has been no technological progression since 1973, right, Jordan?
Yes.
All the cars, everything else, everything is like hand-me-downs. It's 50 years old or whatever.
It is completely. It's beyond being a used future. It's like a used future. But you're right, man. Nothing has progressed past 1973, basically. Hardly at all. It's
a junkyard future is what it is. Everything is just
but
like...
The bizarre thing is it's bleak from the get-go, but they're talking in the scene. Edward G. Robinson is talking about the past and how things were better and all that. And you can tell. And the thing is about this, I will say, Heston and Edward G. Robinson have really good chemistry in the scenes together.
Oh, totally.
This is the first time we see it, and this is, they were in 10 Commandments, in that movie, but they weren't really in the same scenes together ever. So they never really worked together on that movie. And then Planet of the Apes, they might have almost worked together because they had considered Edward G. Robinson for Dr. Zaius, but the makeup test drove Edward G. Robinson crazy. Not the test themselves, just the makeup, because he was old at that point, and it was so uncomfortable, and he said, "I can't do that day after day. No way."
And he was kind of old at that point. What would Edward G. Robinson, Dr. Zaius sound like?
It was like, "Wow, so, well, Mr. Thomas." That was what he sounded like in the test, literally. Yeah. It seems that you have discovered. Seems that you did come from another planet of some sorts, Mr. Thomas. Something like that. It was like, yeah. We go to the next scene.
Well, hold on a second. I did some math here. Some math. And Heston was 50 at the time, although he looks good. He looks much younger than his age.
He looks fairly fit, yeah.
Yeah. And he would have been born in 1972, or 73. So this movie takes place, he would have been born at this time, which is interesting.
Wow.
So when Saul says, "Hey, you don't remember the old days," literally, he would have been born into this world.
Yeah. Oh wow, yeah.
Or at least the declining, world.
Yeah.
Yeah. He would have just been a baby when it's declining. So that makes sense.
I was going to bring up another fun fact that I found.
No more fun facts, Jordan. We're having way too much fun. No, what is it?
Well, the movie, yes, it was based on a book by Harry Harrison titled Make Room, Make Room. And MGM changed the title because they thought audience would be confused and think it was a big screen adaptation of the Danny Thomas sitcom Make Room for Daddy. I am not joking. I did not make this up, folks.
People were stupid. And of course there was an apocalypse. Of course, Jordan.
Yeah. No. Of course, Soylent Green is the future of 1973. No.
But there's also, okay, so we have this, their apartment is all full of books because Thorne is a cop. He's a detective who researches murders, right?
Yes.
Investigates murders.
Edward G. Robinson is kind of the bookkeeper, but he's also, I guess, the information guy. And he doesn't, I guess they don't have Google in this time period or this alternate movie world of 2022 yet. So
Jordan, they barely have phones. I mean,
yeah, true.
It's not even 1973 tech. It's
and
like,
he does. We see he has to work the power sometimes because it glitches. He has to ride a bicycle, one of those aerobic bicycles, those exercise bikes, because it's plugged into a generator, and he has to bicycle on that.
Yeah, and Heston is shaving in this opening scene. Does Heston have a shaving scene in every movie, or is it just in my head that he seems to shave a lot?
I think you're. Yeah, he does that in Ben-Hur. You see him shave his beard off in Ben-Hur at one point, and
he's a good
shaving in Planet of the Apes. Wow, you didn't. Maybe it was in his contract. Maybe he had something going with Barbasol.
I need a scene where I'm shaving.
I read the script. There's not any scenes of me, giving a clean shave. Something's wrong.
Helps the
Can
audience
you write that back in.
Relate to me.
How about a punch up with me shaving in this scene?
And so anyway, Heston goes out to get something to eat after, Saul's just like, oh, the old days. I miss the old days. You don't remember. And we get a Via con Dios. He says Via con Dios, which means go with God. What was the last movie that we saw, Jordan, together that was a Via con Dios movie?
Point Break? No.
Not yet.
Harley Davidson and Marlboro Man?
And the Marlboro Man was a Via con Dios movie. So Soylent Green is a Via con Dios movie.
This is years before a movie even used Via con Dios in mainstream movies at all. This is the first mainstream movie to use Via con Dios in a movie, I believe. No, I'm just making that up. I don't know.
Yeah, Via con Dios, see? All right. And so Heston goes outside, and we begin to understand the world is crowded.
Go with God.
The world is crowded. There's people living in the stairwell. There's homeless people everywhere. People living in cars.
Right outside the steps of his apartment, in this apartment building, there are people living on the steps, children living on the steps. It's depressing, folks, already from the get-go, once again.
Yeah, and then we cut to the scene where there's this fancy guy in glasses. Everyone's dressed in rags. And then this guy goes to this other dude who's living in the car.
He's waiting in his car, yeah.
Yeah, and
he's in his car, which is his house, we find out, because that's the funny thing. First time I saw this movie was in a pan and scan format on TV, and you can't see the mom with her baby in the back seat, I swear, in that version.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
In this version on HBO Max, free plug, in all its widescreen glory, you could see it, and it makes it more depressing even, I think. You realize that's probably his wife and kid. He probably lives in that car. He's probably doing this for his family. That's what's really fucked up about it.
Yeah.
But he hands him over.
I didn't see her. I didn't notice her. But yeah, you're doing pretty well in this world, sadly. There's so much poverty and overpopulation that if you live in a car, you're doing okay. And cars are just parked everywhere. People are living in them in the street.
And then you find out that's the depressing fact. Yeah, people actually are housed in these little ass cars, which are old Pontiacs or from 1972 or 3.
Yeah. So then, or even older than that, really. So then he gives who I call an evil Canadian Jimmy Fallon this crowbar, and he's like, "You know what to do." I
feel like I know this actor from a few other things. He looks like I probably saw him in a lot of television stuff. Probably like he was always the troublemaker on a Westerner.
So then we go and we find out that not everybody in this world is poor, Jordan. We go to the apartment of a Mr. William Simonson, who is played by
Joseph Cotton, who plays Simonson.
And who is Joseph Cotton for everybody who's not literally
Joseph
100 years
Cotton
old?
From Citizen Kane, from the Orson Welles stock company.
A lot
from
of
the
Orson
Magnificent
Welles
Ambersons, from
bunch of stuff.
We could go even later and more obscure, even like Guyana, Cult of the Damned from 1979.
Sure, you're proud
where
of that
he plays
one.
Governor Ryan.
Okay, and then we really opened this girl who's playing a video game, Jordan. It's called Computer Space, and it's like an Atari game.
It's literally like a 1972 or 3 version of a video game. It's amazing. And the young lady is played by Lee Taylor Young. And yeah, we get the idea that she and this guy have some kind of relationship maybe in this apartment, which is supposed to be in Chelsea Towers in the future, basically.
And I love this apartment. This apartment is beautiful. I wish our 2022 looked this cool with all this funky, futuristic 70s modern decor. Like
I love the circular aspect of the whole place.
It's awesome. This set is incredible. I mean, it's almost worth an environmental collapse so that this pimp-ass apartment would exist. You know what I mean?
It is a pimp-ass apartment. Oh, my God. And what a book collection and all that. And a video game that he's got now. And a nice big flask full of the best whiskey, probably.
Yeah, or just any whiskey's the best whiskey in this world where food is at a premium. Like, there's little bits of food are treasured. Right. And this girl, her name is Cheryl, and she is like, they call her furniture. She comes with the apartment.
Yeah, and furniture, it's like apparently it's like an insulting way, kind of saying it at this point in time. It's like a degrading position for women so that they can live and breathe in an apartment and don't have to work, but they just situate and live off this tenant, basically.
Yeah, and
it's
whatever
a depressing
the tenant
situation.
Yeah, they do. It's
just do whatever the tenant wants at his beckoning, and it's understood all at the beginning, apparently, as we find out.
Yeah. So they go out to get some food.
Or
actually, who's the bodyguard, Jordan?
It is Chuck Connors, the rifleman himself, Chuck Connors.
From the old 50s, 60s TV show, The Rifleman, former baseball player Chuck Connors.
And he's wearing this Nehru-style jacket, I guess, and he's the driver, I guess, the gopher for Simonson, and he takes Cheryl out for... I mean, we end up in a butcher shop, tiny butcher shop, because it's the future where things.
Well, it's not even a butcher shop. It is, but it's like a pawn shop that sells food. It's got chain link fencing in front of the guy at the counter. I mean,
just talking about another depressing aspect of this movie too, and this movie's world.
And it's so expensive to buy things like. Yeah. They buy this wilted piece of celery, this wilted stalk of celery, and a couple of apples. And he's like, obviously he could tell these people are rich. He's like, I want to show you something. I could tell you want something else. And
you think I forgot I didn't? I'll show you, Miss Cheryl. The finest beef ever, Miss Cheryl.
And it is just 1 pound of beef, like a little tiny piece of beef.
Yeah, it's like. It looks like it's like 9 ounces of steak.
Yeah, it's not
hung up on a giant meat hook.
And so while they're out conveniently, the guy with the crowbar comes to Simonson's apartment, and he's like, "You've become reliable. We can't risk catastrophe."
Yeah,
and then he sort of resigns himself.
The guy you called the evil Jimmy Fallon.
Jimmy Fallon. I don't know what else to call him. He really doesn't look
like
he's
dressed in such poor rags too. He's looks like he's wearing a skipper's outfit from ages ago or something. But it's kind of sad. Yeah, and he hikes up to the apartment using the same damn 2-piece together crowbar, which is a beautiful matte shot of I think the Los Angeles River. And I think some Marina Del Rey apartments are the exterior. But it's a beautiful matte shot by Matthew Urisic, who later worked on another movie we reviewed called Logan's Run. He later did the painting. He did the matte paintings on that. Later did Blade Runner. Anyway.
Wow. So he gets killed. He kills him with the crowbar. And kind of like Blade Runner, right? This movie is kind of a science fiction detective story. Heston is the detective, and he's going to investigate this murder.
I have to say, too, the way he gets killed is pretty brutal for a PG movie of that time. I mean, a PG movie back then is more like PG-13 is now, I guess. But it's still pretty brutal the way Simonson, Joseph Cotton gets killed in this movie, I think.
They cut away, though. They don't show a lot of blood and gore, do they?
There's a little bit. I was looking more this time around watching it. But it's the sound effect when he just... Because the way the sound it makes... is a stabbing sound. You wonder what side of the crowbar he's using, and you get the idea through the sound effect. Because it's a that kind of sound, But
yeah, it's really effective. Well directed film so far. So Thorne shows up, and he's just loving this apartment because he's doing pretty well. He's got his own apartment,
He's doing for as well as you can be in that time period.
Yeah, but this apartment would impress even us today.
Oh, yeah.
He's just like going to the bathroom and washing his hands. He's just marveling at the fact that there's running water, and he just requests some booze. And then we find out that the cops in this world are just like third world cops. They can just walk in and steal things, take stuff.
Apparently, yeah, when there's a deceased investigation going on, for some reason, they can just take what they want. And it's like, I guess it's a part of a law there.
Yeah, and nobody can touch a cop or they'll go, they'll be executed or go to prison.
I guess cops get special privilege, though, or police get special privilege in this time period. Because they're having to be more military-like as well. Yeah.
Well, because of authority. You've got to keep authority because all these people would rebel. You've got millions of poor people living in the street who don't have food or anything. And the cops, I wouldn't say need to be tough, but in this universe, that's what they do to maintain order, right?
Right.
But basically, they're completely corrupt. I love it because there's so much corruption in this world with the police force. They're divvying stuff up. They're paying each other off. And of course, Thorne just like goes up to the girl and she just starts, looking under her clothes and, not under her skirt, but I mean, like, he sees bruises and it's like, so this guy hits you and whatever.
Yeah, and that's when we quickly find out because he refers to her as furniture. Man. Yeah. So you're Simonson's furniture. Furniture? Something like that. He says something like that.
And he's like, I may have to see you again.
Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, that's what he says. What's a relationship? Furniture? And of course, he's got the ascot in the scene, by the way. We have to mention the ascot again.
God, great. That ascot deserved an Oscar.
Maybe it had like the label of his favorite gun club on there.
I don't know, something. He was a gun lover.
Was this when he started to like his guns already?
Yeah. So anyway, and I don't understand I'd have to go back and see what the corruptive aspect is, but the guy who's disposing of the bodies, Heston pays him off, gives him a cut.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if they
he
sell the
demands
dead
a percentage,
bodies or
more of a percentage this time for
What is that about? Like, what are they?
I didn't quite get that either. I think there must have been a deleted scene alluding to more of that. Or
how many times have you seen this movie, Jordan?
I've a bunch actually. Multiple times, yeah. I just remember but at this point, yeah, he looks around the apartment. He starts to grab. He marvels at how the apartment is so ultra modern and luxurious. And of course, even now, I have to say this would be an expensive apartment in this time period as well. In modern 2022, the rent would probably be a couple of grand at least.
Anytime
for a place this big, depending on the location in the world.
So then Thorne returns home with his bag of booty, and he's sitting there with Saul, and he just like pulls out all this food. You know what I mean? And he's got the beef. He's got the beef.
He's got the celery. He's got and he's
apples.
Got the booze. Even the bottle
booze.
Of bourbon. I mean, right there in a decanter.
So then we go back to the police station. Go ahead,
but we cut out the moment because it's kind of sad in a moment. Like Saul cries when he sees all this, and it's kind of moving for that moment at least. He's just saying, how did we get this way? And of course, it just makes you realize more how bleak this all is.
Yeah, just the sight of an apple and a wilted piece of celery makes you weep. It's depressing. It's not a completely depressing movie, but yeah, we're in it hammers it home all the time about how the old world is over. The old world is over, Jordan. To do a Land of Doom callback.
You're not so much without your goons now, are you, Anderson?
And so then we go to the police station, and this whole movie is crowded. I love it. How many extras do you think are on this film, Jordan?
Oh my God! They use a lot of extras. Yeah.
Speaking of like 10 Commandments or Cleopatra, it's like a biblical film with the extras.
They used everybody that was homeless in Hollywood at that time in 1972 or 3. It looks like they used every hippie on the street. Anybody that was near the freeway, they pulled them off there and put them in the movie. Just saying, yes, a lot of people, a lot of extras in this movie.
And even in the police station, everywhere you go, it's crowded. So
yeah. A lot of out-of-work actors in this police station. No.
Yeah. And so the police chief is Who is the police
It's
chief?
Brock Peters, Sir Brock Peters. What a great actor too.
Great actor.
Voice. Powerful voice.
Been in everything, and he is.
He's like the police captain, I guess.
He's a police captain. Yeah,
he's very strict, or he's kind of. I mean, he's kind of cool with him. He's
kind of cool.
You see the cool relationship they have because he says, "Where have you been? You know what time it is?" And he says, "Is that watch broken again?" or something like that. But yeah, and he says, "I think it is," and he tosses it to him, and they're fixing it, and he's telling him what he assumed happened to Simonson. He says, 1, there were no cameras. 2, the locks weren't picked. 3, the burglar didn't take anything. And anyway, something like that. But yeah, he figures out, he already figures out that there's probably something rotten in Denmark. There's probably an assassination going on with Simonson. Joseph
Yeah,
Cotton.
and he's like, the girl and the bodyguard are out conveniently, and all this.
As he's trying to fix Brock Peters' watch at the same time,
Yeah.
which gives the actor something to do in the scene. But it's a nice little moment between them. Yeah,
And
is that
at
where
the end of the scene, he leaves, and what does he say?
he says, "You know what? I think it's finally broken this time." And he tosses it to him.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, it's even more broken now, or something like that. Anyway, so
Yeah.
he doesn't fix the watch. I thought that
And
was
Brock
funny.
Peters is chomping on a type of Soylent food already. We can see in this movie.
Yeah, because there's Soylent Yellow.
There's like Soylent Yellow, yes,
There's
Soylent
Soylent Red.
just Soylent Red. There's Soylent all over the place. Soylent
And
colors
now
all over the
there's
place.
Soylent Green, new and improved from Plankton.
Yeah.
We get a commercial at the beginning.
For energy, right? I think, yeah.
Yeah. And so Thorne's being followed, and he doesn't know by who yet. And then so he's sort of trying to follow Chuck Connors around. And when he goes to Chuck Connors, well, not Chuck Connors, what's his name in the movie?
Simon, no. Saul, no. Oh, wait.
Jordan, I
forgot
thought
where we
this
were.
was your favorite movie. What happened?
I know. I forgot where we were in the movie all of a sudden. Okay.
Fielding the bodyguard. And so
Oh,
he goes
yeah,
and he's
yeah.
following Fielding the bodyguard, played by
That's right.
Chuck Connors. And so he goes to his apartment when he's out to kind of snoop around. And then who's in the
I
apartment?
think it's his mistress or something, basically,
Yeah.
that lives there. And he basically must take care of her or something. It must be his girlfriend, I guess, that he takes care of in this apartment. And she's furniture once again, I guess.
She's furniture. All
Sorry to
women
use
are
that
furniture.
slang word from this time period.
This movie is not full of strong female roles.
No, that's the other sad aspect of this movie. I realized watching it,
Every woman in this world is either a pathetic street urchin
Yeah.
or basically a prostitute that comes to the apartment. But you get the feeling that maybe there's a bit of a relationship here.
I'm surprised no women protested this movie back in the day. I mean, this was the time of women's lib even. They were burning their bras and talking about how talking about male oppression and everything. I am shocked that women didn't protest this movie back then.
I don't know. Maybe they did. I don't know.
They're like literally picket signs out front going, not fair to women, this movie.
This is a bad one, guys. This is, yeah.
Soylent unfair, maybe. On picket signs written,
Soylent oppression.
They're threatening all the feminists are threatening to burn the negative somehow. They're going to break in MGM and burn the net. This is alternate history, I guess. It probably would have helped the movie, too.
I will say this is interesting because what's going on here is an interracial relationship. Like Heston kissed, I forgot what's her name in
Rosalind
Omega,
Cash.
Rosalind Cash,
In the Omega Man, which was, the first on-screen big studio ever interracial kiss between Heston and, there's kind of a moment in this scene because the woman is a woman of color, She is back.
Yeah, I just thought was pretty interesting. Played by Paula Kelly, been in a bunch of stuff, but I just thought that was interesting. And anyway, so then
She's quite lovely.
she's quite lovely. So anyway, she's eating some strawberry jam.
Yeah.
When he walks
and
in,
there's something tough about her, I feel like. Just she emits there's something she just kind of has this. She exudes this kind of strength about her. The woman, I don't know in general,
Yeah, so
maybe it's her character, I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a quiet defiance to her that the only other woman we get to know in this movie the other woman in this movie, Cheryl, does not have. And
Yeah.
so we meet two women in this movie, basically. And she is the strong one. But, I mean, she knows not to mess with the cops, so he basically just goes through their stuff, looking for things to steal. I don't know.
She
Anyway.
hides the strawberry jam she's eating because strawberry's a commodity, and I think she's trying to hide the fact that she's hooked up with this bodyguard that has money, basically. I think that's what's going on in the scene, essentially, because he ends up taking the spoon as evidence,
Yeah, and then she leaves the spoon out, and there's this tense scene where she is like, "Oh, is he going to see the spoon?"
Yeah.
And this is a weird world.
And of course, he walks around going, "Hey, what a nice apartment. Air conditioning." And she keeps going on. "Well, we were very lucky to get it, yes.
Yeah.
More air conditioning. Fresh water. But yeah, and then you have that great moment when he's leaving where she says, "I haven't been very nice. I feel like there's something I should offer you."
Yeah, I would have offered you something or something like that.
Yeah, and then he says, "If I wanted it, I would have asked."
Or he said, "If I had more time, I would have, taken you up on that or something," or whatever it was. So it wouldn't, it'd be weirdly consensual, but not consensual. Because women don't have a choice in this world.
That was her being manipulative with him, I think, too. She's
Really?
doing that to protect herself, basically.
Oh, probably, and
Because she knows what's going on. She was not dumb completely to this. She knew what he was. She knew he was snooping around.
and she knows that Fielding is up to something.
Yeah.
He's hooked up with some weird people. So maybe
She probably just ignores it all, though. She probably
Yeah.
just doesn't pay any mind, doesn't ask questions, because she's supposed to be, sadly, furniture.
Yeah. And so anyway, this whole movie's basically a male fantasy where guys could just come in and be like, get in bed, and kind of like that.
I didn't think about it like that, but I think you're right. It's like the worst of a male fantasy come true in this future.
Yeah.
Or like, it's a man's world.
It's really much, it's very much a man's.
It's a man's world. Oh, great. We have to pay for that now.
Yeah, dang it, Jordan. Once again. So anyway, Thorne goes back and he and Saul eat this meal. He makes them this stew and they're eating the apples. It's just this wonderful, wonderful scene where they're just enjoying very simple food. And Heston's Thorne's never had a meal like this in his life. Mm-hmm. And then Saul is just himself just hadn't had one in many, many years like that either.
Saul cooks this like beef stew, looks like, I guess, and then of course they eat a fresh apple. It just kind of almost makes you appreciate those little things watching this scene, I guess.
Oh, completely. That's the power of this scene, and I will say there's a lot of scenes like this.
There's a lovely classical music score over it.
Yeah, great music in this film.
Apparently, too, this scene. Fun fact, Anthony. Fun fact.
Another fun fact, Jordan. Wow, our cup runneth over.
Apparently, this scene was never in the script. Fleischer improvised this. It was hard to find, mind you, it was hard to find facts on this movie. But anyway, sorry, to go back on the scene. This scene was improvised. Richard Fleischer.
He just had a bowl of, like, his lunch, like beef stew for his lunch. He's like...
Yeah.
He had an apple. He's like, no, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
They grabbed food from the catering wagon, basically, and just, poured it into, they tried to make it look like, anyway. But no, Richard Fleischer, this scene was not in the script originally. The director, Richard Fleischer, had the idea for this scene, so he talked Heston and Robinson into doing this scene and just improvising this scene. So this whole montage is improvised, basically. And some of those reactions are kind of, I guess, a little bit genuine in some ways,
Yeah, that was right before lunch, and they were like, yeah.
Oh, that's probably, I didn't think about that. I wonder if they shot it before lunch, so they have them, already hungry before the scene.
Yeah, they're really eating. That's good acting.
Maybe they're really eating on screen.
It's hard for actors to eat. And I think you get, like, the idea that Thorne doesn't know how to use a spoon or something. Yeah. He's kind of bumping it into his face in a weird way. Anyway.
Actors are generally used to, when they eat on screen, even back then, I think, they were used to not having to finish the whole meal, basically. Because of continuity, you always had to worry about with the meals and underneath them. So that's why you see a lot of times, and even back then, most movies and TV shows, they're just picking at the food. But they really look like they're digging in this scene.
Oh, yeah. It made me hungry watching
Like, it's not an issue. They're not worried about continuity. They're really digging in this scene,
So then Saul, they had this, one of the things that Thorne took from Simonson's apartment were these books on oceanographic surveys from, years before. 2019 or something, you know, whatever.
Yeah, they're dated 2015 to 2019.
Yeah. Ooh, the far future.
They're big glossy books. There are no flash drives here, people.
Yeah. And I mean, the kind of books that you would see at like a corporation would, you know,
It's not even a PDF
and,
file. No.
No,
It's
nothing
actually
like
a big
that.
glossy coffee table style book.
The most advanced computer we see in this movie is that video game.
Pretty much, yeah.
So he determines that Simonson was on the board of Soylent, the company that makes Soylent Red and Green and all the food. Really the only food that anybody eats. Half the world eats this food. And little chips. Describe what Soylent looks like, Jordan.
It really looks like a square green tile, or a wafer cookie, you know, a square wafer thin, you know, cookie that's has a lime green color to it.
Yeah.
Or a very plant-like, you know, tortilla color to it, but it looks green.
It is as advertised. It's very green. But later on, we see people in the street. Vendors are making it into bread. I love there's like Soylent chips. It's just like little flakes
Soylent
of different
bread. I mean, it's beyond tofu, but they make everybody. Well, so far they're convincing everybody that's very much like a tofu kind of thing. It comes from it's made of things that came from the ocean. Yeah,
of course, Jordan.
It's plankton and seaweed and all that.
A lot of energy. Yeah.
But,
so then,
when Thorne gives him the spoon from the apartment from.
Oh yeah.
And asks Edward G. Robinson to taste it because they don't have computers once again for analysis. So Edward G. Robinson is the computer analysis. And he's like, strawberries.
Yeah, I guess, Thorne wouldn't know what a strawberry is. I hadn't thought about that.
But that's maybe too. Yeah, he doesn't know what a strawberry tastes like because of, But anyway. But that's right after he gives him the books and all that, yeah.
Once again, I'm depressed, Jordan. I'm depressed after another scene in this movie. No, I'm kidding.
The more you know, it just gets worse.
And then, it gets worse. Then he goes back to Simonson's apartment.
Yes.
And what happens here? What does he do? Cheryl is there, and what happens?
Cheryl is there. She's got her little furniture party going on with other furniture.
Other ladies,
females,
you could say
other
ladies.
I'm sorry. This time period.
We're in the Mandela 2022 here.
Yes.
We're in. We don't call women furniture in this.
I think they're all just sitting around having a nice little pedicure, manicure party, nice little mani and pedi.
And they're drinking actual alcohol with like ice in it,
and smoking some kind of cigarettes.
Smoking
I
Soylent
can't tell if it's
cigarettes?
tobacco or weed. I assume I think it's weed watching it last night, but I've had times where I thought it might be tobacco.
It was green, but I just thought they were smoking soy. I don't know. Anyway.
And Heston walks in and he's just looking around. He's like, wow. Hey. And he grabs a cigarette. He's like, if I could afford it, I'd smoke 2, maybe 3 of these a day. Wow. And then he takes a sip of the alcohol. He just grabs the chick's drink, one of the chick's drinks, and takes a sip because he just shoves his way around this movie, this cop Thorne.
And then, so what does he do? He goes.
He says he needs to talk to Cheryl alone in her room. He says, Simonson's death was not an accident. You understand? Now get naked. No.
Pretty much.
And they're slowly undressing. She quickly gets the idea.
Go to bed. He says, get in bed.
Oh, yeah, he says, get in bed.
Yeah.
And then they slowly start to undress and get in under the silk sheets, and he's still sweating like a dog.
Yeah, it's a very sweaty movie. It is, like I said, it's
maybe it
one
was
of
those
the
hot
sweatiest
lights,
movies
those
I've
old
ever
hot
seen.
lights at MGM. I don't know.
And so she says that Simonson took her to church.
That's right, to church, and he cried a lot.
And confessed to this priest.
It's just more depressing stuff for this movie.
And he just seemed dazed, and he said the truth was tearing him apart. Yeah. He's like, anyway, let's get it on. And
don't get me wrong, being all cynical and sarcastic and trying to be funny here, but Lee Taylor-Young is a great actress in all these scenes. She's very convincing. Just the way she describes all this, it's so sad. It makes you so sad and melancholy. The way she talks about Simon and all this, and going to church, and crying, and because she uses this soft voice the whole time. Every time she's talking to Thorne, too, it's this soft, comforting voice. Everything is okay. It's okay. It's all the,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, very, very comforting. And then they sort of develop a relationship somehow. Of course, he's like
they're,
twice her age. But anyway.
Yeah, anyway. Probably old enough to be her daddy.
Yeah.
But we hear some commotion going on outside amongst the women, and it's the annoying door guy that we forgot to mention in the beginning. I forgot his name.
Yeah, the building manager. It's not
the
important,
building
but the building manager comes up, and he's literally slapping these women around, like punching them and slapping them.
He's wearing that jacket that just says that he's the bellman or the building manager, too.
Like
on
he
top of that.
raided Austin Powers' closet or something.
Yeah. And he's got that ugly hair, which makes it worse for that time period. It's just that bull hair. But yeah, and there he is just slapping these women around like for no reason and just saying, you're violating the rules of this apartment, something like that. And then Heston comes out just like to save the day. And he's like, what is wrong here? They're violating the rules. And he talks him out of it. He uses his Jedi mind control, and he just about slaps him to the ground. But he looks like a hero now amongst the women all of a sudden.
Yeah, and all the girls go, and then Cheryl invites him to stay the night. And then we have a shower scene, which is not a sexy shower scene. It's more like, I've never taken a shower before. Shower scene. People must smell bad in this world, Jordan.
She's like, why don't you stay a while? But yeah, they take a shower, I think, and something like that. But yeah, he stays.
Well, I think he's actually
there's
nice
going to be
to
another
her,
scene where he
of.
stays too again, and it gets longer. But
yeah, compared to other men, I guess in this world, he's somewhat nice to her. And she's probably looking to move on with him if she can,
Yeah.
But anyways, we get to that a little later, and then Thorne goes to church, right? And he talks
looking
to that
for this priest that talked to Simonson. Yeah. And, the priest just looks exhausted and shell shocked.
Yeah, he just looks like he has PTSD or something. And
he just looks bewildered. And exactly PTSD or something. And he's asking him questions, and he's just like, he's clearly being evasive with him. And this scene in the church is so eerie, man. It looks so middle-aged, and it just shows how barbaric things have become, and how
there's just so many people.
All these people stuffed into this cathedral, this giant cathedral. It's a giant cathedral too. That's the thing. It's like one of those big giant New York style cathedrals, but all these people still stuffed in there with bunk beds and a bunch of people sleeping on bunk beds, and then
And whatever it is that Simonson told him has just absolutely destroyed him as a human being.
That's another thing, too, we figure out,
Yeah, and so that's very depressing. And then depressing moment number 15 so far. And then...
And he's being tailed again, I guess. Am I skipping ahead here? I forgot.
Yeah, a little bit. So then he goes to... Thorne goes to the chief, right?
Yeah.
And then the chief's like, we need to close the Simonson case. And he's like, who bought you off?
Now you sign this.
Yeah, he's like, I won't sign this to close the case. He's like, I don't want my name on it, And
it's a tense scene with Brock Peters and Heston. It's great.
So something's happening. There's pressure from above.
Yeah, to somehow sweep all this under the rug, which clearly it's an assassination going on here. Yes.
The guy with the glasses, the fancy guy who ordered Simonson's execution earlier, or murder. We see him with the governor, and he says, basically, Thorne won't close the case, and he went to church yesterday, and some priest, the same priest that heard Simonson's confession, and he says, kill him.
Oh, yeah. Is this the one time we finally meet the Governor Santini?
Yeah, we see him on TV.
Because he's on TV, he's on every picture, and there's like the re-elect Governor Santini or something like that, I think. But all these photos everywhere. And I didn't even realize for the longest time until watching the movie again, I'm like, do we ever see? Oh, yeah, we do see him in that one friggin' scene. Which clearly there must have been more scenes shot with Whit Bissell.
Yeah.
Who plays him.
You get that
classic
feeling.
Actor Whit Bissell from The Time Machine and many more movies, of course.
Yeah. And so then we see Chuck Connors go to the church. And it's I thought it was a really cool scene. Like, he goes in for confession, and the priest is just sitting there sort of dazed, and he just, forgive me, Father, for I've sinned, pulls out a gun and just shoots him in the head.
Oh, it's brutal and swift and it's very brutal. The sound effect too is just once again just like, ugh.
And it's in the trailer. They kind of gave that away in the trailer, which
they did. Yeah,
sort of pisses me off. I hate when trailers give away the movie. They do it all the time. I just, anyway.
Yeah, even back then, you'd think they would, if it had been like Hitchcock making this movie, it would have been probably a little more hidden, this kind of stuff,
Yeah. So Thorne gets demoted and put on riot patrol. So basically these guys are wearing football helmets out there.
Oh, yeah.
And just trying to prevent all these homeless people in the streets from going crazy and rioting, obviously.
And if you notice too, because it's he's having to work the riot on Tuesday, which is Soylent Green Day, which is where there's bound to be riots all the time. We get the picture of,
It's going to be because why? Because what happens exactly?
Because when you watch this movie a bunch of times, and after you realize, oh my God, he's throwing Thorne. He goes, Thorne, you're on riot patrol. Thanks. That's just what I need right now.
Yeah, he's a little pissed off about that.
Thanks. You just made my day. Something like that.
Well, then he knows somebody got to the chief, and he knows that he's being demoted. And he knew too much, Jordan. He knew too much.
Basically, yeah, which was why Simonson got killed. Obviously, as we're slowly learning, because he knew too much about something that we're still learning about. But the whole detective story aspect as well.
It's a really good detective story.
It keeps you intrigued, though. I realize, it does.
Yeah.
It keeps you. It is a good detective for a science fiction movie with a detective story within it. I think that's the interesting aspects of this movie is it being a sci-fi movie and a detective movie on top of that. It's hard to do. It's hard to cross.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few of them, but yeah. This one does it really well, and I just remember because I hadn't seen this movie in I don't know since I was.
I'm gonna say something bold here. It's more detective. It's more of a detective movie than Blade Runner, even. As much as I love Blade Runner, even
I completely agree with that.
Blade Runner is a more atmospheric movie, and it's beautiful. I love it, but
it's a little mopey. Yeah,
it's not so much a detective movie like this one is. Even this movie is more a detective movie.
This movie, you kind of understand there's a simpler narrative.
Yeah,
you understand more what's going on than Blade Runner. No offense, but
maybe because it was more of a classic filmmaking standpoint going on with it too, as well.
Blade Runner was very style over substance. This movie is very.
It was ahead of its time. I mean, definitely
very plot driven, and that's good because I mean, I the last time I saw this film, Jordan, I must have been a teenager. It's been a very long time. I think. I don't know if we ever watched it. Maybe we did, but it feels like it's been a very long time, and I was really intrigued because the story,
I could be
and
wrong, maybe.
Of course I know how it ends, and that sort of, it's one of those movies that you wish you didn't know how it ended. Like
that's the
Citizen
thing.
Kane or something.
I would give anything to have watched this movie fresh. Like if I had many wishes, like Doctor Strange could go back in time and make me forget that that I was Spider-Man. No. If Doctor Strange could make me forget, I didn't know Soylent Green was the big ending reveal made of.
We'll find out. We'll find out. Hush your mouth, Jordan.
But like I say, it's funny that I discovered a lot of these bleak science fiction movies that were pre-Star Wars, in my adolescent age and my teen years, because like I said, when you're kind of bleak as a teen anyway. It's kind of fitting, but looking at this movie again, and I've watched it so many times over the years as an adult, off and on, and getting to see it in all its widescreen glory again, I really get a sense so much more of how depressing the world is, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is not a movie to. I mean, it's a very well crafted movie, and it hammers it home almost. I wouldn't say quite to a flaw, but. This is a depressing movie, but you're so engaged in the story, this detective story, that you're not really paying attention. It just becomes that's the way the world is. And I
was going to say this riot scene, too, is once again on the MGM lot on Old New York Street.
Yeah.
And it's filled with extras, outside of this facade, basically, behind these streets, there's nothing, basically.
Then what happens? Oh, sorry.
It makes it interesting as well because it's such an ancient set basically there that they're filming on.
Yeah,
it's probably been in everything MGM before that.
Oh goodness, it kind of looks like a set.
But it's aging on top of that, which is fitting for the whole world.
Yeah,
is what I was going to say.
And then what happens, Jordan?
Oh my God, you talking about when the riot starts to happen?
Yeah, why does everyone
Oh my
riot?
God, the shit hits the fan in this scene.
They've run out of Soylent Green.
They've run out of Soylent Green. The supply has been bam, we see a woman walk out going, "They really stiff you. This is all you get." And then, of course, they announce one of the guys working with Heston has to announce, or Thorne, that the supply of Soylent Green has run out. That everybody needs to go home now. And the crowds break out, and then they say they're bringing in God damn it, I forgot the name of the
scoops.
The scoops. They're bringing in the scoop. We're going to bring in the scoops here in a second.
And these aren't scoops of raisins.
No, these scoops are attached to these dump truck-like things, and they're scooping up human beings. It's probably stuntmen, I imagine.
Yeah, I was thinking that the same.
I hope it was not real extras that they were that were just gung-ho in the scene. I hope they weren't just extras they were taking advantage of in the scene.
Dear mother, I finally in the film. Why? No.
Yeah. Surely this was stuntmen. Surely they really didn't let, only stuntmen would get a kick out of doing these scenes like this.
Kind of looks fun. It kind of looks fun a little bit.
Exactly.
But, so it's just scooping people up and throwing them in the back of these. It's like the paddy wagon, but literally a garbage truck just scoops you up.
They just don't have time to actually grab people and put them in cuffs anymore. They just scoop them all up because there's too many of them to deal with. This is what they've resorted to.
Yeah, and so I did the math. The lady who started the riot comes out. She wasn't even trying to start a riot. She was just like, she says, I only got a quarter kilo. And it's weird how they're saying kilos in New York in the future. So the guys, this is what happens when you go to the metric system, everybody. This is what happens. Like it? And so she says, there's a kilo, only get half a kilo of Soylent Green. And Jordan, I did the math.
What did you come up with?
Half a kilo of Soylent Green in 2022 is worth exactly what a half a kilo is worth in today.
Which is?
I don't know. I don't know how many credits. I don't know. $10, whatever Soylent Green costs. I don't know. They didn't say how much it costs.
I can't believe. I'm sorry.
Work with me here, Jordan. Work with me.
I'm sorry. I had to take a hit on that moment.
But anyway, so there's a big riot.
I had to put that in my pipe and smoke it, Anthony.
And as this riot's going on, the guy with the crowbar from earlier, evil Canadian Jimmy Fallon, tries
to... on the assassin run, and trying to kill Heston now with a gun.
He has a gun this time.
He had a gun this time instead of a crowbar. He upgraded, I guess. Maybe he got promoted to a gun after that.
Hey, he killed the first guy. Then I guess he leveled up and upgraded his weapons.
Hopefully they put his family up in a nice place, I hope. I hope they set his family up or something.
They moved the family up to a Buick, Jordan, This is nice. Even got seats in it,
We're going to move you into an old limousine now.
And so, so clearly he did good.
No, a car, not an apartment. Sorry. But so a whole shootout is happening between these guys trying to kill Heston, basically, or this guy trying to kill Heston. I think he manages to nick his leg with a bullet.
Yeah, he hits his leg with a bullet, and then
he accidentally gets. Oh my god! But this guy gets killed. Do you remember how he gets killed, Anthony?
He gets the scoop crushes him.
The scoop just comes right down on his ass. Ooh, ouch! Because the scoops, when they come in, people, it's like slams on the concrete in the streets, and it's like shump, scooping up people. But yeah,
this is a crazy scene. This is
right down on the guy, man. Yeah, it's violent.
Yeah.
It's a crazy, interesting scene, though. Yeah, it's the essence of this movie, essentially, though.
Thornton, after this happens, he knows that Fielding's been following him. He knows a bunch of people have been following him. So he goes to Fielding's apartment, Chuck Connors' apartment, and just starts beating the crap out of him and punches the girl.
Yeah, and then gets into the fight with a girl as well. My God. I mean, back and forth. Although she holds her own with Chuck, I got to say, man. The chick is admirable.
She takes a punch. Yeah.
She does. My God. Oh.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a crazy kind of scene, though, watching it, especially nowadays.
Yeah, there's a lot of just straight up people punching women. It's crazy.
But he basically tells him to stop tailing me. Something like that.
Yeah, and then so he leaves and basically says, if you guys don't stop following me, I'm going to come back here and kill you both.
Yeah.
Okay.
We believe him.
Yeah, he got shot in the leg. He's not too happy about it.
I mean, he's a tough guy, this guy, John Thorne. He takes a lot,
And so we see Saul going to this book exchange.
Oh, yeah.
It's called what is it called?
It's called like the Underground Book Club. No, I just made it up.
No, it's. I mean,
I
looking
can't
it up.
remember.
I thought
but
this
yeah,
was your
these-
favorite movie,
These
Jordan.
people were his. I know. It is my favorite movie.
The Supreme Exchange. It's called The Supreme Exchange.
That's right. I think it's more information, basically, once again, because I think all these old people basically hold information.
They're the only people who understand the value of information. It's almost like Fahrenheit 451 or something, where books are banned, but people don't care. And that's what Saul said early in the movie. All this happened because we just didn't care. People didn't care. He's pointing at the audience. He's like, "You didn't care,"
Yeah. Or he says, "Nobody cares, even me," something like that.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. See?
It's like, so there he goes, the book exchange. See. And it is
He's talking about to a bunch of older Hollywood actors as well, I think, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't catch who was in the scene, but it's a wonderful set. You want to talk about claustrophobic, interesting sets. It's like a library, but it's interesting how the books are just disheveled and old and just crammed together.
Yeah. I seriously think these people are used like old hard drive computers, because they're utilizing their memory, they're utilizing their knowledge from these are well-read people, exactly. Almost like the book people in Fahrenheit 451. I never thought about that connection, though.
Yeah. I mean, there's only a few people in the world who care.
And I guess because computers must be limited in this world as well. They have computers, but
Jordan, the only computer in the world is the video game.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
I bet in order to get to this place in society, they probably want to restrict information from people.
That's
and people
true, too,
can't
yeah.
read, because I know Heston earlier says, "Can you read?"
Oh,
So
yeah.
a lot of people just can't read. They're just
A lot of
trying
people are
to.
uneducated in this world, so yeah.
There's no school.
Yeah.
There's no social infrastructure. It's just people trying to exist. Everyone's just laying around, literally. And just sick and laying around. Can you imagine, Jordan? We've been through a giant virus. Can you imagine, like, how sickness will spread in this world, and there's unsanitary conditions? And,
Oh my! Yeah, that's the other thing too. You see people wearing masks in that riot, in that crowd scene.
I did. I had a COVID flashback.
Which was eerie in a way,
yeah.
watching it nowadays. Some of them are like, it's because that was the one eerie connection that was similar, was just the crowd, and some people in there are wearing masks. Now, maybe in that world, it's because of the pollution, and maybe some people are affected more than others with allergies.
Or because people smell really badly, Jordan.
Or because it's New York City in the year 2022 in this world, and it's overcrowded with human bodies that all stink. Yeah, so exactly.
Yeah. This movie's
And
a
people
prequel
may
to
just-
WALL-E or any of those post.
I mean, this is like
apocalypse movies.
Rome in its heyday, I imagine, where just the streets, people probably just take a dump in the streets there, I imagine.
I'm glad they didn't show that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this world could probably have looked worse if they really even gone there,
Yeah, they didn't, luckily. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
So anyway, he goes to this book exchange. Saul goes to the book exchange where there's just a bunch of people and all these books, and he brings them these books, the books that were the oceanographic surveys,
2015 to 2019. Yeah, the books that Thorne retrieved from Simons's apartment after he died, basically.
Yeah.
Which have become very revealing, apparently, to Saul. And when he takes it to these people, it becomes even more revealing from what they're saying cryptically. Like, they're talking about, oh, yeah, we've seen it. We know what's going on with this, more or less. Not in that way, of course, but...
They know something's up. They say Simonson was eliminated because he knew what was up with this thing.
Yeah.
And they need proof. And then Saul, once he finds out about all this, he puts the pieces together. They tell him, we kind of walk into this scene, and he's just like, I want to go home. And so he turns and he leaves, right?
Yeah, and it's like crushing, man, because you could tell he's stressing, he's thinking about it, and then he just goes, oh, I want to go home. But you don't know what he's alluding to when you first watch this movie. That's the weird thing. But later on when you watch it again, you're like, oh, God, I know what he's talking about. Oh, my God, how sad. How heartbreaking once again.
I know.
Anyway.
Depressing moment 42.
Don't we I think we go to Simon's apartment after this?
Yeah, and Searle's there, and it's the new guy who's
Searle's
moving
there.
in there.
Not yet, though. I think we might be skipping ahead because I think Thorne goes there because he's been injured, and she nurses his wound on his leg.
Yeah.
And she tells him to stay a while, and she convinces him to stay the night, and he says, "Strawberries for breakfast."
Yeah. So they, yeah.
Who the hell needs strawberries? All right, an egg. Who the hell needs strawberries?
So then they have just a nice little date scene, you know.
Yeah, and obviously they did it. We get.
What? All this Soylent goss, Jordan.
He did her right there.
You wash your dirty mouth out with some Soylent soap, Jordan.
Oh,
how dare
all right.
you?
As the Canadians say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So sorry there. Buy you some Timbits and a Molson, eh? That's how people know you're really sorry.
That's right.
And-
So yeah, he spends the night. God, what happens? He wakes up the next day. No, with a bad hangover, and no.
Yeah. Then he goes out. I think we skipped that scene, but the new guy moves into Cheryl's apartment, and he's a creepy douche. He's just like,
Oh my God, yeah.
disgusting. He's the rest of everyone in this movie is
Occasionally,
just
I'll have business over. Sometimes it's for business. Other times it's for pleasure. Oh no, other times it's for fun. Are you fun? You're like, ew.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she's just like, yeah. I mean,
She's
because
like,
what's her option?
Sure. What is she gonna say? No, fuck you, you creep. I'm out of here. God damn it. I'm gonna go live with Thorne and Saul in their tiny little shoebox apartment.
Yeah. But as we find out, Saul didn't go back to his shoebox apartment. He went home, which is not his home. It's a place, a very nice looking place where you stand in line, right?
Yeah.
And then Thorne goes home and he finds a note from Saul. He says, I've gone home. And he freaks out. And then he runs to stop him. And what is home, Jordan?
We see Saul walking into this giant sort of building in this desolate part of New York. Although I think they filmed this, apparently, I think this was Los Angeles Arena that they filmed the exterior in, but and part of the interior. But he's escorted in by a lovely young orderly or nurse, and she says, "Welcome home."
Yeah.
And it's eerie. It gets eerie, and he goes and she escorts him to the proper line.
Well, it's TV's Dick Van Patten, I think.
And then and then she escorts him to the proper line. And then Dick Van Patten comes in and escorts him to the proper. But they're asking him questions like, and when you watch this the first time, you're going, "Where is he going? What's happening?"
Yeah.
When you watch it again, it gets sadder because you know what's going to happen. And he says, you know, he asks him what's his favorite color, and he says orange. And he says, "What kind of music do you want?" He says, "Classical but light." And he says, "Don't worry, we got you. We'll take care of you." But he's escorted into a room, and
a theater, they call it.
Yeah, it's like a theater with a bed.
And he lays down on a bed.
It's eerie. And I'm going to bring something up about the scene here in a second. I'm going to go deep for a deep cut here.
Oh, hold on, Jordan.
But
Hold
anyway.
on. Let's not get too
Yeah,
deep.
he's laying in a bed. He's lying. They strip him down into a gown, and he lays into a bed, and they give him this drink. And this drink basically is like a lethal injection almost. And there's this beautiful show of music and this IMAX image.
Giant Cinerama, IMAX.
Cinerama for that period, really, yeah. Beautiful, just the sharpest, most beautiful images. And it's all image, and it's sad because it's all images of green, trees, mountains, animals. You know, we don't see this anymore in this world of Soylent Green.
The world
it's
before.
The world before. It's also sad and depressing at the same time, and it's really moving too at the same time. But
oh yeah, the first time I saw this, I would say almost in tears. I mean, I knew it was happening this time.
It moves me every time I watch it, honestly. Yeah. And then
it's a beautiful scene, and the picture quality is so crisp, especially watching it on a streaming service. I'm not going to plug, but it was high def, and I'd never seen it like this. And it was really good. I was like, wow.
I agree. It looked even better this time watching it in its high def glory, and because that's the other thing too. All these old MGM movies from that time period, back when Turner owned them, he kept the prints in really well refrigerated temperatures. So like the MGM prints survived really well over the years because of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, this scene, interesting thing about this scene is it's kind of, the idea is lifted from an earlier script draft of Logan's Run. Logan's Run was already kind of lingering in MGM at that time.
Yeah.
Because it had already been there for a while. And in the original script and book of Logan's Run, people didn't die on carousel. They died at sleep shops they were called sleep shops.
Oh.
And it was like a euthanasia clinic. And I feel like this was almost this. I don't know if this was actually in the Make Room book by Harry Harrison that it was based on. I don't know if this scene was in there or if Saul died this way. But I actually wonder. I have heard that this was actually lifted from an old draft of Logan's Run. Even this movie was made before Logan's Run, about 3 years. So anyway.
Anyways, Heston or Thorne shows up, and right as Robinson's on, or right as Saul is on the bed watching this movie, and he sees this movie, he kind of like pushes the guy aside, and Heston is like, "What the hell is this?" He has never seen anything like this, and then he sees the pictures and he realizes that everything Saul has been saying, this old man's been yammering on about for years, is true.
Oh yeah. And
then
it's sad too. It's because he says, he says, "Thorne, do you see this?" And the way Heston, it's a beautiful performance of Heston, because Heston's just like, yes.
Oh God, he's in tears almost. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're reacting to, I think, nothing. This is actually blue screen shot. Meaning they had to fill it in later on.
And these two, he says, "I told you," and he's like, "Yeah, I see." And it's like these two are very secure in their masculinity. They tell each other they love each other a lot, almost to a point where you question things. But it's a beautiful scene.
Mm-hmm. Great chemistry between them in this scene because,
without that chemistry, the scene wouldn't mean anything.
It's sad too, because this scene was Edward G. Robinson's last scene that he shot in the movie, and this was the last movie he ever did. It was his 101st movie that he did. And he died after this, like a few days later, apparently.
Really?
Sadly.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Well,
so that's what made it even all the more moving after that,
Wow. So that's probably why you just get that wow. Yeah.
He really felt like this because and nobody else knew that he was really, really that sick, and everybody, he kind of knew that it was his time to go before anybody else did, apparently, at that point. So I think that might have been on his brain in this scene.
Wow.
But I'm sorry.
Touching.
Anyway,
R.I.P.
I'm sorry. This podcast is supposed to be funny. I thought. I'm sorry. I'm making it all sad now. I'm sorry.
I haven't laughed 1 minute. See, not one joke, Jordan.
My wife is right. I'm not funny.
Yeah. Well,
she tells me that all the time. Anyway.
Well, keep trying, Jordan. Anyway.
Yes. I keep plugging away, though.
Keep at it. Anyway, so Heston, or should I say, Thorne.
Yes.
Thorne goes to the
and this is
the loading dock, and
we left out the big integral thing though in this scene when Saul is dying, the sound is going out when they're talking in the intercom. He has to plug the headphones in, and we see that Saul is revealing something to him.
Yeah,
and it's something that probably will be the reveal for the big ending, because the way Heston reacts is like in shock.
On top of this, he whispers something to him, and we don't
quite
hear
Thorne. Yeah. So I'm sorry, right where you were, Thorne. I
love that because the audio is kind of going in and out, and I wanted to pause it, and I'm not sure. I kind of want to hear what he said. If you hear it or read his lips, you can probably read his lips. If I could read lips, right?
Yeah, I was looking for that too this time watching it, but he barely. It's very still mysterious and very enigmatic still.
Yeah,
I notice.
Well done. I really like that. This whole scene is fantastic.
But it does give you the the idea. There's big implications here. There's something wrong going on still.
So they wheel his body out, and Thorne goes to, I guess, the loading dock or wherever to see what's going on with these bodies or whatever.
Yeah, he follows where they. He somehow follows where they take Saul's body. Yeah, and. Yeah, it goes into a truck, and the truck goes to this plant.
Big garbage truck they're just loading these cadavers into. They're wrapped up.
Plant, which looks a lot like the El Segundo sewer somehow.
How dare you, Jordan?
which oddly was in another movie we reviewed called Logan's Run. Once again, MGM must have loved that location.
Yeah, they had a contract. They got it. I mean, hey, it looks great. It looks great, right?
Yeah.
And
Look,
and
my
that's-
nephew owns the real estate there. Okay.
You look, they owe us a favor, all right? They owe us a favor.
That was Mr. MGM said that.
Mr.
He
MGM.
made that up, Mr. MGM. Yeah, the president at the top.
The president.
Go shoot at El Segundo, okay? Make some use of that. My nephew owns the location, okay? You'll get it
Tell
free.
them Mr. MGM sent them.
Tell
all
them
right? Just tell
Mr. MGM sent you.
And so
Straight from the top.
So he ends up this big factory, which is the El Segundo pump station or whatever, and you see all these bodies being dumped from the trucks into these big vats. There's conveyor belts and stuff, and he's
Like it's a big giant, like what they make potato chips in.
yeah,
But it's dead
industrial potato chips,
bodies. Yeah.
military grade potato chips.
I didn't realize that too. It's literally a big, maybe it's because I'd never seen it this good in HD before, but it's a big fucking vat of liquid they're being dipped into, like pot stickers or something, or,
Exactly.
you know.
And so he follows the production down the line, I guess. And then we see him look up, stand up, and then there's this conveyor belt. And what's on the conveyor belt, Jordan?
We see Soylent Green crackers like flowing down the conveyor belt, which gives us something. What is it being made of? Is it being made from these dead bodies? Is that what is going on? But yeah, we see it all visually. There's no dialogue, luckily, from Heston stating the obvious or anything stupid.
And he says, "I thought it was vegan."
But two stuntmen
I thought
guards
Soylent
below,
Green was gluten free.
But two stuntmen guard below see him, and one of them runs up after him after the other one shoots at him, if I remember correctly.
No, yeah, he just fights him. He just kills two guys here who are fighting him.
The guy falls off a ladder, and then Heston's stunt double, Joe Knut, has a fight with the other couple of stuntmen that run after him on the conveyor belts and all that. It's pretty neat, though. Yeah, he wraps the chain around the guy's neck, and it's convincing almost. And then the guy falls down to another conveyor belt. I mean, it's an interesting stunt, but I could actually see this better to an HD that it was Charlton Heston's stunt double, Joe Knut, from the back, because you can recognize the gray hair, the same gray hair from the Omega Man. And that was actually, fun fact, Heston's stunt double all the way back to Ben-Hur, by the way, the chariot race.
Wow.
Somehow he like a lot of actors
You are
back
stalking Charlton Heston here, Jordan. You're full of fun facts.
then. Yes.
Jordan, leave my stunt actor alone.
I was gonna say, like a lot of actors back then, Heston had his own stunt guy that he worked with on everything generally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he must have had it in his contract to have him on all these movies with him.
So then he escapes the factory and he calls Cheryl and says, "We're not living together." He breaks up with her.
Yeah,
Basically.
pretty much.
And then some men are chasing them.
It's not working out. Bye.
Yeah.
Sorry, you just
Look, it's not you, it's me. So he's running from
I think
some men.
he's worried about her. He tells her he wants her to be safe, and then she says, the new tenant accepted me, and he says that's good,
And you feel bad for her. This guy's a real creeper. Like that
I felt
guy.
even more bad this time around watching it for her than I did, I when I was watching it more, this movie, and listening to it more, I'm going, this guy is a creep, man. Poor woman. God, and I feel bad for women's role in this world of Soylent Green,
Well, all's not lost. At least the movie has a happy ending because these men are chasing Thorn.
A happy ending? Are you kidding?
These men are chasing Thorn, and there's gunfights in the street. He kills all of them, but Chuck Connors, Fielding, and he chases them into a church. This is what I'm saying. They use the same sets over and over again, so they chase them to the same church, right?
The same church. And big shootout in the church and knocking people over in bunk beds. And I hope it was a lot of stunt people, not extras in this scene.
Yeah, they weren't killing extras, Jordan. I promise.
I mean, Heston is falling all over the place, and he's a tall guy. Obviously, he's falling all over the place, being shot at and knocked around by Chuck Connors until he finally kills Chuck Connors himself.
Yeah, he stabs him with this big knife.
That's right. He grabs that knife. That's just
what are you
laying on
cutting with this big knife? Soylent? Like, what are you... Anyway.
Why was that
There's
knife
no
just
food.
right open there in the church? Yeah, you didn't even see bread nearby.
Yeah, cutting Soylent bread?
Damn lucky there was a steak knife just lying there loose in the church.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, and he stabs him, and it's brutal, man. He stabs him right in the... I forgot where he stabbed him.
Right in the chest, I think, or the stomach. And
Oh, that's right. Right in the chest.
Heston's got a few bullets in him. Or
Probably like right in the stomach area because he's bleeding really bad. And
yeah, and he dies.
But Heston's been shot, and he's staggering along. But he's already notified. We forgot to mention earlier that he had already notified the captain.
Yeah, Chief Hatcher.
Yeah, and he shows up finally to Thorne's aid, and the other guy from the riot shows up, even the other police guy from the riot, and then yeah, they're putting him in a stretcher. And
he's like, "Get proof of the exchange." That's
where the big reveal starts to happen. I've seen it. He says,
"Ocean is dying.
Ocean is dying. Plankton is dying. Soylent Green is people." But the way he says it, it's really good acting, though.
Is that the best you could do, Jordan? You got to give us a big Soylent Green as people. Like you mean it, like you're surprised.
The ocean's dying. Plankton is dying. Soylent Green is made out of people. But the way he's saying it is almost like you can tell he's trying to cough up. He's about to, he's trying to catch his breath still,
Yeah, and we find out that the quote of the movie, and this is why, unfortunately...
That's not the only time he says that, too. He's going to say it one more time when he's leaving. He's going to remind us again.
Yeah.
Soylent Green is people! Yes. You have to tell them. You have to stop them. Soylent Green is people. But yeah, and he reaches up his hand, which is bloodied, and they freeze frame on that.
Yeah.
And yet it's almost like Heston must have had a contract with Walter Seltzer, the producer, on having Christ references at the end of his movies sometimes that he was in with him.
Yeah.
Where, because this is also like the Omega Man when he dies with his arms outstretched in a Christ-like pose. Big spoiler on that one, sorry. But yeah. This is like almost a Christ reference, like Thorne has sacrificed himself. He's the martyr of this movie. He's the martyr of this movie, that's right.
Yeah, so in Heston's contract, it's first I gotta have an ascot, I gotta kiss a pretty girl half my age, and I need a Christ-like ending.
Please, don't make the girl too much shorter if I have to kiss her, because then my chin starts to go into my neck.
So anyways, that's the film. That's the end of it. So
that's the ending. And they were selling this movie at the time of what is the secret of Soylent Green? What is Soylent Green? And
what a great date film.
What
Fun
a great
for the whole
film.
family.
Yeah. I wonder, too. I mean, yeah, fun for the whole family. You got Heston slapping women around and men and calling women furniture. And, what a great example for family.
Oh God! Take the kids out.
No,
so
I'm just kidding.
But so what happens after this, Jordan? I mean, the movie's over, but what do you think happens?
After I wonder. I wondered if I thought Thorne had died at the end of the movie originally, but maybe he didn't die. Maybe he did live. Maybe there was. Maybe there
leaves
was a
it
sequel.
open. I didn't feel hope. If you freeze on a bloodied hand. That's not a hopeful gesture because the chief has been paid off. He doesn't look like he's listening to him.
It's got a lot of pessimism, like every movie, even the sci-fi films and every movie at that time period ended on a pessimistic note. It's like where there's it was a nihilistic tone. It was, and once again, this movie's guilty of it too, where it's got the nihilistic ending, the hopeless ending, the existentialist ending of there's no answers at the,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd like to think that Thorne lived, though, and became a hero, hopeful, and maybe the outcome was more hopeful, at least for him.
It leaves it open to you, but
It's definitely open to interpretation, I guess.
Yeah.
But I wonder if audiences back then, I wonder if the gimmick wore off quickly with audiences and they all spoiled it for their friends when they went and saw it before the other one,
Yeah. I'd Soylent kick someone's ass if they spoiled this movie.
I can't tell if this movie was a hit from all my research either.
Well, I found some unreliable information online,
Yeah.
and it appears that on a budget of about $4 million, more or less.
It cost almost $4 million, and then it made almost $4 million. Am I correct? That was the research I did as well.
That's some fake news. That's some Soylent news on Wikipedia.
Governor Santini.
Get some Soylent facts.
Governor Santini propaganda once again.
Yeah. I have some other unreliable numbers. 140 million. I've seen 210. Regardless, whatever it actually was,
Yeah.
it was a massive success, this movie.
It was a hit back then. Okay.
Yeah.
It had to have been.
I don't know. Those numbers sound out of control, 140
Yeah.
and 210. But I think maybe worldwide that's possible. But maybe if you're figuring it made half its... Maybe made about, $60 million or something.
Because I feel like, MGM... Science fiction was MGM's bread and butter. I don't think anybody acknowledges that the early 70s, MGM probably made more money off their science fiction movies than they did off their regular movies where they took more risks. Like, I don't know. I could be totally wrong, but I feel like that was another. I think it was funny. I think MGM was ahead of the curve in some ways, and so was Heston. Knowing science fiction was going to be more, that it was going to become more in the future than what it had been. And it did, because it did become way more than what it had been before, in the past, for sure.
So, yeah. I mean, there were bigger budgets, and we're beginning to see that, in the 70s, science fiction can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that...
I mean, most movies pre-Star Wars science fiction made basically like Disney money did back then, where it was made for $5 million, and it would probably make about $25 million later on, but that was expected. You wouldn't expect it to do more than that, though, generally. But you at least knew you were gonna break even and then make some money at least.
Yeah,
as a studio.
Jordan, did you learn any lessons from this movie?
Yeah, I feel like I learned a lot from this movie. If there's no Google in the future, you have old people to be your Google for you, I guess.
Yeah, if I got to go talk to old people for everything I need to know, that's not great. Let's not do that.
Just imagine young people, out there listening, if you are listening.
Everybody, recycle.
Just imagine if you
drive
didn't have
fuel-efficient
Google.
cars, so you don't have to talk to old people.
You just younger people out there, you just better enjoy Google, because in the Soylent Green future, Google is having to go ask an old person what is something.
Yeah.
Hey, and the guy, and it would be, instead of Ask Jeeves, it's Ask Saul.
Yeah.
Hey Saul, where does Soylent Green come from? Hey Saul, who is Pedro Pascal?
Yeah.
I don't know Pedro Pascal. Anyway. And then your Google answers you like Edward G. Robinson on top of that, although that would be kind of cool, actually.
That would be pretty cool. It's like, Edward, play some music. What do you want to hear, see? What kind of mood are you in?
Exactly. And in fact, we put Edward G. Robinson's voice in place of Alexa.
We got classical music.
Classical music? Light? Heavy?
Got to wear that ascot. I know you got to have that ascot with you at all times.
That probably is the best example. Just if it's the future and there's no air conditioning hardly, an ascot comes in handy. That's for sure.
Yeah,
as far as that goes.
So I was thinking about what could there be a sequel to this movie, Jordan?
Yeah,
Soylent Green 2, Soylent Blue.
But what would it be? It'd have to be a different catch. It would be like Soylent. It'd be a new thread, obviously, right? It'd have
to be we'd finally meet the people who are orchestrating this whole scheme. How about that? How about resolving a plot, Jordan? How about actually telling a story, Jordan? This movie stops in the middle, kind of, we don't have that final scene.
True. It does leave you hanging. That's true. Hey, look, this movie wasn't an Oscar winner. Okay, I'm sorry.
But I was thinking there could be a prequel, though, like Soylent Yellow. Soylent Yellow! It's puppies! It's made of puppies!
If I did I should have written down more jokes for this shit. If I did if I did a sequel, it would be probably, things would be more run down, and Charlton Heston would be revived like midway through the movie with some bionic hand or something,
Could you? That'd be
he'd be half bionic.
That'd be cool.
With a half glowing eye, because we're already in the mid to late 70s after Star Wars at this point, hopefully,
Be a cyborg.
It'd be like producers want to Star Wars it up a little more, and so it'd be like the early Mad Max, the early Death Race 2000.
As a Terminator sort
And yeah,
of
there's
look.
a new threat. Yeah, it's not just Soylent Green now. Now it's just Soylent everything.
Everything's made of Soylent.
In fact, they're freezing humans, and then you know what? You cross it over with Logan's Run. There you go.
Yeah, they're eating people in Logan's Run too. What is it with? And I think you've said this before. What is it with cannibalism in the 70s?
Maybe Logan's Run was the future of Soylent Green. Fan conspiracy theory, since they're both MGM. Just saying, in the feature film universe. Ooh. Maybe it was like the flip side. They thought they figured it out. They thought. They thought they solved population problem, but no. Ooh, think about that.
Yeah.
Bite on that for a bit as an apple with a worm in it,
Mind blown, Jordan. It doesn't explain all the old cars. It doesn't explain where all this technology comes from, because clearly technology stopped happening. Development and technology stopped happening in the Soylent Green universe. Like,
the interesting thing, you
so.
see car batteries powering that apartment that Simonson's goon lives in, with his woman.
Yeah, there's all sorts of wonderful detail about how people survive in this world. I love it. That's what you like in the scenery. There's all sorts of interesting little things squirreled away about this. There's kind of a universe behind this movie, and I love that about it. It's very intricate and very well thought out, and it
is a detailed universe for that time period.
It's rewatchable, even though you know the ending. It's rewatchable.
I will give it this too. I mean, it's got more of it looks more real than a lot of science fiction back then.
Yeah, it really does.
Which is one thing I do have always loved about the movie, because it does have a realistic aspect to it.
Well, Jordan, what kind of rating do you give this movie?
I give it 3 out of 4 Soylent crackers. Soylent Green.
Why do you
crackers.
keep changing up the ratings? There's 3 out of 4. That's 75%. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll change it up then. Okay, fine then. I'll give it 7 out of 10 Soylent crackers. How about that?
Yeah, that's close enough. Yeah, Soylent crackers. I give it. I like this movie a lot. I'll see your 7 and raise it to an 8.
Oh wow!
In terms of just sweaty Heston ascots, like you could just take Heston's ascot and just wring it out, and you would just get a gallon of sweat.
I should have rated it with ascots, definitely. Oh damn it!
But no. But it's a fun movie, and not
I guess
an 8.
I guess that I give it a 7, but the 3 part is for the way the movie treats women in retrospect.
Yeah,
it doesn't. There's no strong women working, and all the women are just so undermined in this world, which is kind of.
There are just like no women in this movie to speak of.
Yeah, not even women of authority working in the police station. Not even women in the police station working. They could have at least had varietied it up a little. It could have been a little less oppressive. Than
Stronger.
That. I feel bad for the women in this movie. Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
But on top of that, I love this movie. I love the fact that it's MGM of it, from the dying era of MGM, where it's in its last days, where the studio's dying and it's making sci-fi films, on the lot
depressing.
there.
That's why they made so many depressing post-apocalyptic movies at the time, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I will say...
science fiction, big with the kids.
8 in the sense of... I think this movie is really more of a cult movie now. It was a big movie at the time.
Oh, yeah.
But 8 in just enjoyability. It's thought-provoking. It has a message. And that message is that women are furniture. It's just a really enjoyable film, and I really thank you, because this was I don't know, I was in the right mindset to see this, I guess. But yes, with all the stuff, all the things, a depressing movie. If you're not obviously 5 or 6, maybe if you're just. I'm looking for something fun to watch with the kids. No, not Soylent Green, everybody. Not Soylent Green.
Don't watch this movie sober, please. Seriously, have a drink or a toke with this movie.
Yeah.
And you'll be sent back in time to a time when science fiction was way different from Star Wars.
So I guess they didn't predict the future very well. Knock on wood. The year's not over. We could go Soylent real
God.
hard, Jordan. We could take
geez.
a hard turn and go Soylent here very quickly. I don't want to wish.
When
that
I
on
was a
us.
teen adolescent, I almost thought, "Oh my God, what if things could?" I almost believed things could get that bad, and like it wasn't Soylent Green. Which I'm kind of relieved that it didn't get as bad as you see it, to where you can't even, where the average brother can't afford a steak.
Yeah, barely afford a
Only
kilo
rich
of
people.
Soylent.
Yeah,
Well-
but you can afford plenty of Soylent Green. Yeah.
Or not
Or
even.
Soylent
Not
Red
even
or
Soylent
Soylent
Green.
Pink
It's
or-
so bad. It's so
Yeah.
bad. Yeah, guys, go watch it. I think it's really enjoyable. Great soundtrack that really suits it. Great acting. Good direction. Just the production really makes the film. You know what I mean?
It's beautifully
really-
shot in CinemaScope. If it did have a sequel, it would probably be Soylent Drug in my imagination too. Also, it'd be a drug made from some bizarre,
It's even further in the future.
with some big reveal. Yeah, and it'd be further in the future where things would be more run down. People are dying off slowly because of this Soylent drug.
Like, what's more shocking than making Soylent out of people? Like, what could it possibly? It's babies. It's not even just people. It's babies. All of it.
Yeah, it's oh my God. I mean, God, yeah. I mean, what is it? It's Soylent meth.
Soylent meth is made of babies. It's babies.
It's made of bleach. Oh my God.
Okay. Well, anyway, everyone, thank you for listening. We really appreciate everyone, especially you regular listeners. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And next
love
time,
you.
Jordan, we'll be talking about some other movie as the music cues up here. We'll be
Yes.
talking about some other film,
It may not be made of people, but something else. Who knows?
hopefully a film that's not made out of people. And honestly, now I want to go to restaurants and be like, is this made out of people? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I will also add that when I Googled Soylent Green, there was the popular question, is Soylent Green based on something real? That was actually a real question I came across. But
Are people out there?
for you people out there, no, Soylent Green is not based on a true story, even though I'm sorry, it's fictional.
I hope you can't go out there and buy Soylent Green unless it's a joke. Unless it's a joke product.
But oddly, I have seen corporations with the name Soylent Green on there. I did pass by some websites, and I thought that was odd. Why even go there? Why do they realize the connotations of that name? Anyway,
They know. They just heard it, Googled it.
yeah. We're not talking about Eggo waffles here, people.
They asked an old person, and that's what happened. That's the answer they got.
They went to a Saul and asked him. Yes, like Edward G. Robinson. That's what happened there exactly. But this is definitely a trip back to 1973 science fiction, folks.
It
Check
really
it out
is.
for that reason.
It really is pretty awesome movie. Okay, and next time, Jordan, we will talk about some other movie not made of people, and also probably not as depressing, I hope. Not another depressing post-apocalyptic movie.
We'll pick something different next time. Maybe we'll get out of the 70s.
Yes. So,
I can hear the music cueing us out. Oh, sorry.
all right. Anyway, thank you everyone again for listening. This has been The Robots Took My Podcast.
The robots took my podcast. And you know what? This podcast is made out of people. It's people! You have to stop them! You have to tell them, Robots Took My Podcast is made out of people!
And now a word from our sponsor.
You may have heard some nasty rumors about Soylent Green being made of people. Well, you know better than that. I mean, does it taste like people? That's fake news. And I helped spread that dirty little lie because I was a little confused. But I'm better now. Anyway, the Soylent Corporation has addressed some unfortunate production issues and is now proud to announce a new delicious treat, Soylent Purple. Soylent Purple now with 100% less people guaranteed. Not that Soylent Green was ever made of people to begin with. Soylent Purple. It's made of wholesome natural ingredients like plankton, tofu, or something. It's delicious, and it's good for you. It's full of vitamins, and it's definitely not made of people. So the next time you're hungry, reach for Soylent Purple with the confidence that there won't be any people in it. And now try our home meal kit program, Hello Soylent, so that you can make people at home. Damn it, I mean not eat people at home, because it's not made of people. Never was. Try new, people-free Soylent Purple. Vegan, gluten-free, and it's even kosher too. Got the K on the side of the package. Soylent Purple. That's good eating.
All trailers, clips, music, or any other copyrighted material are used sparingly, edited from their original forms, and used for the purposes of criticism, discussion, commentary, and education about these fine films.